Now they say hard work, persistence, and a little bit of luck will get you the American dream. And many are indeed living that dream in China. In a little over 30 years, China's economy has grown tenfold to become the world's second largest. This has spawned a legion of multimillionaires and even billionaires. But the wealthy are accused of often breaking laws and manipulating government officials and police. Look at that picture on my screen. It's a woman at the center of the latest controversy. She's 20-year-old Guo Mei, and she published pictures of her possessions, luxury cars, a huge house, designer handbags, on China's micro-blogging site Sina Weibo. Here's another one of her posing next to a Maserati. So, sorry about that. So there you have it. There she is posing next to a Maserati. All of this on Sina Weibo, and social media is abuzz with how all of that may have come from possible corruption in the Red Cross Society, because in some posts she claimed she worked for them. So the Red Cross Society of China, where she possibly worked, but that's not confirmed. Now netizens say she has so far evaded all questions about how she actually got that, sudden wealth. And let me show you a video as well, which was filmed on a bystander's cell phone. We're not entirely sure in what part of China this was from, but it's a very revealing and quite shocking video. We're not entirely sure. We can't independently verify exactly when it happened, but there's somebody lying on the street who was obviously knocked over, and it seems as if this lady at the center, the lady complaining in the middle, in the blue skirt pointing, she's knocked somebody over, but she's blaming them for being in the way. There's a crowd of bystanders there arguing with her. I mean, arguably in some other countries this sort of situation could lead to lynching, could lead to some sort of mob anger, but that wasn't the case. There's an argument going on there, and all the while somebody's been knocked over in the middle of the road. So that video that you can find on social media over there. Let's discuss this. Let's find out if there is actually a class war. Joining us now on Skype, Chinese journalist Jin Zhao. She also writes the blog Things You Don't Know About China, focusing on Chinese society, online discourse, and Chinese culture. Also with us is Malcolm Riddell, who authors the blog China Debate. He's an investment consultant for businesses in China. Welcome to the stream, both of you. Malcolm, would you agree with Jin that this is representative of a deeper issue at play?
Yes, I think so, and I particularly agree with Jin in one way. I think the wealth and income inequality gap, as she suggests, really isn't the issue. It's the problem is that there's a double standard for the rich and for the rest, and there's a perception that the rich didn't get rich fairly. Yeah. I think any ambitious young Chinese man or woman says, just as Jen said, hey, that could be me someday. So they don't mind that there's millionaires and billionaires. But what they want is that they want to have one standard for everybody. And the second thing is that they want to have a level playing field. They don't want to feel that they have to have family connections and bribe officials to get ahead.
And this kind of anger towards the rich that we're seeing playing out on social media, how much does that disturb the perception that the government's trying to create that things are quite harmonious in China?
Well, certainly it belies that perception. But I think we have an inherent contradiction. You know that at the beginning of the reform movement in the late 70s, Deng Xiaoping supposedly said to get rich is glorious, and that he wanted the people in the urban coastal areas to get rich first and bring everybody up. So in the same way, so you have an inherent contradiction here between sort of a social harmony and a level playing field, and policies that have favored at different times have favored various groups over others. And so what you end up with though is a situation where in the rural areas, of course, we see these riots taking place. But now what I'm finding interesting is we're beginning to see it in the urban areas, and we're seeing it over for example, one that I saw was when local police kicked a crippled fruit vendor to death.
Yeah.
There was a huge protest, spontaneous protest there, violent protests that had to be put down. And then we're beginning to see protests by the middle class, such as it is in cities, say against polluters who are polluting in their neighborhoods.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so we're seeing a very widespread sense of that social harmony is coming unraveled at many different levels and for many different reasons. And initially, it was, I think, a lot of it was the land and corruption and the fact that local officials are at least portrayed as very often being corrupt and capricious.
Okay.
But now we're seeing much more widespread discontent.
I want to bring Malcolm in here because I want to throw another layer of complexity to this. You have economic disparity and you have people feeling that many of the rich didn't get rich fairly, a growing economy, but you've also got issues of political and perhaps ethnic identity and fault lines emerging over that. For example, Tibet, for example, the Uyghurs in Xinjiang province, perhaps issues of ethnic identity in the Manchuria region as well. When you add those to the mix, how complex does this become, and does it become a situation where somewhere down the line it will be difficult to hold all of this together?
Well, I'm afraid I'm not in the camp of the when China rules the world. And we really could have a very long show just about all the problems the systemic problems that could bring China into a lot of difficulty. I don't think it's going to collapse, but I think there's plenty that could hold it back. And I think you've hit on one of the key ones. But the thing is that the Chinese, unlike the Russians, the Russians when they broke into their own country, had both economic and political liberalization at the same time. It was pretty much a disaster. In China, we've had economic liberalization and reform, but we've still had very strong security and crackdowns on areas like Tibet and the Uyghurs, and a lot of these protests. So that at the moment, the Chinese model is to suppress all dissent, and so these fault lines that you're mentioning are there, but whether or not they'll turn into an earthquake is a tougher matter.
I think China needs a Middle East style revolution to force democracy. So whether it should or shouldn't happen, do you see it potentially happening? Could it happen soon?
Before I answer that, could I just do a quick follow up on
sure,
on the earlier thing?
Yeah.
I think the issue, I think the real core at the income distribution and wealth distribution problem, to a great extent, comes from not just from the way it's distributed by the government, but the fact that it's really state capitalism, and that the government has made a conscious choice to lavish resources on state-owned enterprises and wealthy individuals. For example, in the financial sector, the banks take money from the foreign exchange earnings and from household savings and channel these to these entities and people. And the way they do it is there's not many places to put your money, so people put their money, their savings into a bank.
Welcome back to the post show. So much to say, so little time as always. That's why we have a post show, and that's why we're happy to have a post show. We hope you're watching on stream.aljazeera.com. Malcolm and Jin are back. Ting is also here on the orange couch. Malcolm, let's go back to you. You can finish your point on the pitfalls of the implementation of state capitalism and continue.
Okay, I will wrap it up quickly. But what's happening is that the wealth of the common person is being sort of systematically drained off to feed the state capitalism and the well-connected individuals. And now, if I can go to your next question about a popular uprising, I don't see that as a real possibility. It may happen, but I think popular uprising is a difficult thing in a country the size of China. If there were a problem where the elites were able to organize, and there were another Mao Zedong to go out into the countryside, there could be a problem. But I can't see that happening. I see a much greater threat, though, from far left on the rise of Maoism. Many now are looking at the age of Mao in the 50s, 60s, and 70s as now a golden age where there wasn't income inequality, there wasn't corruption. Officials worked for the people and not to line their own pockets. And this has become a very an increasingly popular faction. What's happened with this is that I don't think it's going to take. I don't think it's going to take over. I think it's going to be more like the Tea Party in the U.S. and a strong gravitational force.
Okay.
But if this happens, we'll see very different policies and ones that could begin to address these issues without an uprising.
You spoke about how China and Russia were different. You were pointing out the differences. We have Ibrahim Daji saying, you look at what's happening in China and you think of the Russian Revolution, the rich were always at the top. So at least in that capacity, do you see his point?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear his point. You weren't clear. I beg your pardon.
Okay.
What was the point? I'll respond.
Can you hear me a bit
yes, perfect.
more clearly? Perhaps there's a problem with your microphone there. Ahmed Malcolm, there was the point being made by Ibrahim Daji, who tweeted in saying that although you said that China and Russia are quite different, he feels that when he looks at what's happening in China, he thinks of the Russian Revolution, where the rich were always at the top. Do you at least accept his comparison in that capacity?
No, because here we've got an institution of the Chinese Communist Party, which and backed by the military, that is still firmly in control. There happen to be wealthy elites and others in the private sector, but they're being drawn into the party now. So we have the seat of great power and the seat of great and the people of great wealth coming together. I think it's a much different situation there.
But Jin Zhao and Malcolm Riddell joining us via Skype. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having
this discussion on the stream. Yes, it was multifaceted, and we're not going to get to cover all of it in 40 minutes, but it doesn't harm us to try, does it? Thanks a lot for joining us on the stream. And thank you very much, Ting.
Thank you.
Good to have you on the Orange Couch. We hope